Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back in Germany at Motorsport Arena Oschersleben. It is time to close off the morning part of the Sunday's racing program here in Germany for the 2023 season opener of the ESET Cup series and all of the championships that are tagging along with them. One of them is actually also the popular Renault CLIO Cup. And for this season, I am happy to report that we have a very strong field actually in place. 12 cars on the grid, and they are nicely distributed between the Mark IV and Mark V generations of the Renault CLIO. Still, theoretically, the Mark IV should be a little faster, bearing a horsepower advantage. However, the Mark V is actually quite a lot lighter, so that could come in handy in the racing conditions. And the qualifying actually confirmed all that. It is Martin Kadlecik, a Czech junior driver, on pole position for the Renault CLIO Cup race. So for him, the season starting in the best fashion possible. Martin Kadlecik, from being the Czech virtual Formula One champion through Renault Twingo and through representing the Czech Republic in the FIA Motorsport Games, no less. He is now leading the way here in Oschersleben for the race number 1. Alongside him, all of the experience there is in the world in the Renault CLIOs are in the hands of one man, and that is Tomáš Pekař, because he is Mr. Experienced. He's basically the Mr. CLIO Cup. He won the championship last season with the Mark V. He also drove in the European CLIOs. He is also the champion of the Mark IV CLIOs for the Central European zone from way back then. And he is now going to take on the challenge to Martin Kadlecik into the first corner. Second row, that is Szabolcs Lantos and Henrik Seibel, the other Mark V CLIOs, fielded by the Mělník-based Carpec service racing team. On row number 3, that's local driver Michael Hulm from Steibl Motorsport. Alongside him, Miha Primožič, also in a brand new, and I do mean brand new, fresh from the factory, Mark V CLIO. Behind them, Igor Tomljanovic, David Malinkovský, Nick Štefančič, Adam Konopka, Thomas Fischer and Jiří Zbožinek. The red lights are on, the red lights are off, and we are racing here in Germany. Martin Kadlecik from pole position. He will be trying to defend hard in the first left-hander, but it seems that Tomáš Pekař, although having a horsepower disadvantage, is now leading into the first corner. Ooh, and there's a bit of a problem back. Michael Hulm sliding and spinning in the first corner. Adam Konopka, no, sorry, that is David Malinkovský, trying to avoid him and having to skip through the gravel trap. So it is Tomáš Pekař leading from Martin Kadlecik. Szabolcs Lantos in third, having a fight with Henrik Seibel for P3. There is Miha Primožič in the Alpine Racing's liveried car, trying to defend from Nick Štefančič, it would appear. The Renault Twingo Cup champion from 22 and 21, trying to make his way up the order. His car carrying a Terminator-like makeup on the face, having lost the right eye in a qualifying crash earlier on today. But mechanically the car is still working well, and Nick Štefančič is in the race with us, although missing a headlamp. So Martin Kadlecik, having lost the lead to Tomáš Pekař, he is now second. And let's see if he can actually take on the challenge and get back to the fight for the victory. Because as I mentioned, there is a power disadvantage to the Mark V CLIO. It's about 20 horsepower, let's say, slower. However, bearing nearly 100 kilos less. So that should come in handy in the racing action. Igor Tomljanovic now under pressure from Nick Štefančič. Štefančič coming through in his brand new CLIO, also fresh from the factory, having only had months since its production. And enjoying the racing debut. Unfortunately, there was a crash earlier on in the quali, so the right-hand side headlamp is now covered with quite a lot of gaffer tape, but that's what you actually use in racing series to put everything back in place and hold it together. And if it doesn't work, you haven't used enough of the gaffer tape. I actually spoke to Lemma Racing guys before the race, and they were quite proud of their creation. And basically mentioning to me, yeah, the weather is nicer today, not like yesterday when it was overly cloudy. Now it's, well, the skies are pretty much clear now and the sun is shining, so even the car is actually covering one of its eyes in front of the sunlight. So that's only normal that it looks the way it does. Anyway, mechanically it's fine, and as I mentioned, Nick Stefancic is already making his way through. Now he is fighting with Miha Primožič. They are sharing the garage together. And now they are running alongside each other, side by side, down the pit straight. Nick Stefancic will be ahead when it comes to the braking zone around the outside into the first corner. Nick Stefancic moving up one place. And he's already in P5, which actually means P4 among the Mark V Clios. Martin Kadlecik 2.6 seconds adrift of the race leader Tomáš Pekář. So it is Pekář from Kadlecik, Seibel in third, Lantos in fourth, and Stefancic in fifth from Miha Primožič. There it is, the Alpine Racing liveried Clio. Behind them, Igor Tomljanovic in the Mark IV. Then Adam Konopka in another Mark IV Clio. Enjoying only his third racing weekend with the Clio, having raced the French Cup Special last year in Brno, and also on the home track of Slovakia Ring. We managed to get a quick chat with Miro Konopka, whom we have in the GT races this weekend. He hasn't had much of luck himself, but mentioned, yeah, the junior, he's gaining experience. Doesn't even have a driving license yet at his young age, so what a way to learn how to drive, really. And now under pressure from Michael Hulm, the German driver coming through. So Michael Hulm up one place. Car number 74 from Adam Konopka. Thomas Fischer dropping down to 10th currently in that white and green Clio. Behind him, David Malinkovsky. And in P12, Jiří Božinek, who is driving the championship-winning Clio from the previous seasons, having acquired the car from Carpec Racing Team. It is the car that was taken to the title glory by Tobias Poschik in the last season, and the year before that by Filip Sandström. Ooh, and there's a big mistake from Adam Konopka, having a dramatic sideways moment from through the triple left-hander. Luckily, really, did not cross the way of the following Mark V Clios, because that would have been a big one if he'd have been collected. Pekář already extending his lead to 3.3 seconds from Kadlecik. Seibel third, Lantos fourth, Stefancic fifth. And now let's check the lap times. Tomáš Pekář currently setting the pace at 141.9, the only driver actually to have dropped below 142 so far in the race. And And we have got Nick Stefancic setting his personal bests. And he is currently the third fastest car on the track. Faster than him currently only Tomáš Pekas and Martin Kadlecik, the leading Czech pair. And there is the fight for third. The orange racing, well, the orange liveried car, that is Henrik Seibel. Behind him Szabolcs Lantos, who was second overall in the last season. Nick Stefancic following behind in fifth and already trying to see where he can actually get some overtaking done. And it seems that Henrik Seibel has collected a little bit of damage, and a piece of his bodywork seems to be in contact with one of the tires. You see little plumes of smoke coming out of the rear left tire, and Henrik Seibel dropping down behind Lantos. Nick Stefancic trying to follow suit around the outside of the second to last corner. Stefancic using every millimeter of the track. Ooh, and kicking up the inner rear wheel in the process as he's cornering so flat through the last right-hander. And now he is through on Seibel as well. Henrik Seibel had a little tumble in his Clio in the last season in Poland at Tor Poznań. And now he's coming sideways through the second corner. I wonder if there's a puncture on that tire. Doesn't really look very healthy through the right-hand corners. And now he's dropping behind Miha Primožič as well. So Seibel definitely experiencing issues. And I'm afraid he might have to pit later on in the race, because that tire is really taking quite a lot of battering through the process. Pekas has extended his lead to nearly 5 seconds from Kadlecik. Lantos now third from Stefancic and Primožič. But Nick Stefancic lining up for a move. Through the chicane they go, and onto the back straight, into the S's. Tomáš Pekas setting another fastest lap in the process, 1:41.8. There is Stefancic trying to line up for a move. Stefancic, he knows what a wheel-to-wheel, door-to-door, bumper-to-bumper racing means, as he spent previous seasons in the Renault Twingo Cup, where you actually do nothing but contacts and the so-called bump drafting. We do not have the Renault Twingos racing this weekend, but they will join us later on in the season, as soon as during the Hungarian round should be. Ooh, and there's a problem. Is that Pekas? No, that was Henrik Seibel. That was actually Henrik Seibel with the troubled rear left tire. That's only logical, and the German driver is returning back to the pits. Nick Stefancic lining up for a move round the outside into the third corner. It is a long way around the outside there, and Szabolcs Lantos is staying ahead thanks to that. Miha Primožič catching up with them as well. Through the triple left-hander they go, into the hotel section. That's the long, never-ending right-hander there. Lantos still trying to defeat third and the podium place. Across the sausage curb, through the chicane, and onto the back straight. But we are only now reaching the halfway mark of the race, so still whatever we've done so far needs to be done once again before you reach the checkered flag. There is the fight for P3 currently, and Nick Stefancic looking good in that fashion. Definitely showing superior pace to Lantos. And he's now trying to have a look down the inside, at least to unnerve his opponent. And onto the start and finish straight they go. Nick Stefancic flashing the remaining one headlamp that he still has on his car. And now having a look down the inside, is he going to go for it? Yes, he is. And Nick Stefancic is through. A beautiful, beautiful stuff from the Slovenian. So from 9th on the grid all the way up to 3rd now for Stefancic. And we can only wonder how the qualifying would have ended had he not decided to kiss the barrier in the final sector. But we can now wonder, is there still more to be had in this race? Currently it is overall P3, but P2 in the Mark V CLIO class. There is Martin Kadlecik ahead, and he is some further 9, nearly 10 seconds further up the road from Stefancic. We've done 7 laps so far. Well, that means that Stefancic would have to be lapping almost 2 seconds per lap faster in the remainder of the race than Martin Kadlecik to actually have any sort of chance to rob the Czech driver of his 2nd place. But we'll see about that. Just under 11 minutes left on the clock now. Pekas comfortably leading from Kadlecik, Stefancic 3rd, Lantos 4th, Miha Primožič trying to follow suit. Behind his countryman, now he's finding his way down the inside into the 3rd corner. Szabolcs Lantos unfortunately left the door wide open, and Miha Primožič, as much a party-loving guy we know him to be, he didn't really need a 2nd invitation. And he is now through on Lantos, up into 3rd actually in the Mark V class. So that will be a podium at the end of the race. Surely when there is champagne to be had, Miha Primožič is interested. At the same time, Miha Primožič staying serious and is not really allowing Nick Stefancic to get away with it that easily. The rear axle of that predominantly white car now a little nervous, and the car being tail happy as a result. So there is Adam Konopka in his Mark IV CLIO in the ARC Bratislava colors. Behind him, that is Thomas Fischer. would you just look at that? Tomáš Pekář already more than 11 seconds further up the road from anyone else. Kadlecík in second, Štefančič in third. And Tomáš Pekář has now set another fastest sector time in sector number 1. Štefančič now basically matching the pace of Martin Kadlecík, so definitely that gap is going to stay there. Tomáš Pekář, on the other hand, a full second per lap faster than the rest of the pack. Really putting to use the agility of the Mark V Clio. So we are coming back to this fight for B9. Konopka from Fischer. Slovakian-Austrian fight here for B9. So far only casualty of the race is Henrik Seibel. Not really sure what happened there. We did see the car with a lot of smoke coming from the rear left tire, but we didn't really see the incident that caused it. Probably a little harsher fight with one of the opponents, and now Thomas Fischer attacking Adam Konopka down the pit straight. You will have to go around the outside into the first corner. Ooh, huge lockup from Thomas Fischer, and he is now taking the other variant of the opening chicane. He completely missed the braking point for, or the apex for the usual chicane, and all he was left with was the other layout. Which means that Adam Konopka is actually keeping his 9th place in the process. Back to this fight for B3 overall and also for B2 in the Mark V class. Nick Štefančič still holding on to it. Miha Primožič following suit. And Szabolcs Lantos still staying in the mix. With 4 minutes left on the clock, the race is entering the closing stages. The race unraveling pretty interestingly so far. So this race is going to close the morning part of the Sunday's program. Ooh, Adam Konopka making a mistake in the second corner and skipping across the grass, losing that place to Thomas Fischer after all. So in the end, the Austrian didn't really have to fight for it that much. So having failed the original attempt completely, he is now being handed the position by the young Slovakian. So this will be it for the morning program when the race finishes, and then after nearly an hour-long lunch break, we'll be back with the second sprint of the GTs, and then the second TCR race, and then the second Clio Cup race to finish off the season opener here in Germany. From here we're going to Hungary, where we will be racing later on this month, actually on the last April weekend, Then we're going to the Red Bull Ring in the second half of May, the 20th and the 21st. Then, actually, depending on which series you're following, on the 9th, 10th and 11th of June, there will be an extra race weekend for the TCR, Eastern Europe. And let's see that mistake of Adam Konopka once again, simply running wide, running out of tarmac in that right-hander. Mid-June, the TCRs are going to Slovakia for the Slovakia Ring round. Then the ESET Cup is going to Most in the beginning of August. Slovakia Ring it is again at the end of August for the ESET Cup series. And then the season will end in Brno in the beginning of September. So 6 events raced across 7 racing weekends depending on the championships. And a lot of motorsport fun to be had for all of us. So we do really hope that you stay with us through the whole season and will follow us in the remaining events as well. Back to the Clio race number 1 here at Oschersleben, because the fight for third isn't settled yet. And Nick Stefancic is going to fight for it still, because Miha Primožič, being much more experienced Clio Cup racing driver, of course Nick Stefancic debuting here in Germany. And there is Tomáš Pekař, the race leader, already lapping the former Carpec racing car. I already mentioned Jiří Zbožínek, who is at the wheel of that blue Clio, or blue and white Clio. He and his dad, they bought the car from Carpec Racing for this season, and it's the one that took Tobias Pošík and also Filip Sandström to title glories. Before that, it was actually collecting successes in the UK. But now it is Tomáš Pekař who is on the road to victory. Mark 5 Clio is going to be victorious overall. Tomáš Pekař crosses the line here in Germany to open the season with a win. Tomáš Pekař, having become champion of the Mark 5 class that actually didn't field that many cars last season, but this time it does. And now he is opening the season with a win here in Germany. Martin Kadlečík, he has already finished, hasn't he? Yes, he has. And this is the fight for P3 overall and P2 in the Mark 5 class. Nick Stefancic in 3rd, Miha Primožič in 4th, Szabolcs Lantos 5th. He is also through across the line. Daniel Hulm, the local driver, will come home in 6th. From Igor Tomljanovic, David Malinkovsky in P8 overall, Thomas Fischer in 9th and Adam Konopka in P10. Jiří Zbožínek a lap down in 11th, and Henrik Seibel, who retired from this race earlier on after a contact that left a piece of his bodywork rubbing against the rear left tire, which was causing it to break, basically. And I'm not sure if it actually ended up with a puncture or was going to end up with a puncture. Either way, Henrik Seibel decided to retire the car and not to risk any more damage. Tomáš Pekař, what a name on the Renault Clio Cup racing scene. He did attempt a step up to TCR racing 2 years back, and not unsuccessfully actually. This was the spin of Daniel Hulm at the start of the race. He then had to be avoided by Adam Konopka. Adam Konopka had a dramatic moment of his own through the triple left-hander. And then Nick Stefancic was through on Szabolcs Lantos around the outside. Miha Primožič followed him down the inside. Tomas Fischer locking up into the first corner, but then gaining that desired place from Adam Konopka when the Slovakian youngster actually make a mistake of his own. And then Tomáš Pekař scored a victory for the season opener here in Germany. What a racing career he's had already. I mentioned his TCR Eastern European chapter 2 years back when he fought Michal Makeš for the overall title glory and only lost it in the last weekend. So ended up second overall in the TCR Eastern Europe. But he's also been collecting many championships in the Renault Clio Cup World. Tomáš Pekař being the European champion from 2020, also 2019, sorry, Central European champion, and also in 2017 he also scored a victory in the 24-hour race in Dubai in the GT4 class back in 2019. There he is, Tomáš Pekař. Tomáš Pekař discussing the race start with Martin Kadlecík. They had a fight in the beginning. If you remember, right after the start of the race, Martin Kadlecík lost the lead, having won the qualifying earlier on. It was actually Renault Clio's who opened the Sunday's program on the track as they started with their qualifying at 9 AM. And Miha Primožič then third overall in the Mark V class. So that is it for the Renault Clio Cup race. And now enjoy your lunch, and we'll be back with the broadcast right after that around 1 PM with the second GT sprint. Until then, it is a very warm goodbye. So it's the table we want to finish with. If there is a table, I can finish.
Yeah. So
Yeah, okay.
highlight a table, and then we can say goodbye.
Yep. Will do.
And then it's possible that then some pictures from park maybe.
Yeah.